I'm Emma G. Rose.
I'm Michele Shearer. We're indie authors.
And this is Indie Book Talk. Hello and welcome back to Indie Book Talk. Today we have Michele Scott, a New York Times Bestselling author of mysteries. Welcome to the show, Michele.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here and talk with you guys today.
Well, we are excited to have you. My first question for you is, I'm calling you Michele Scott because that's your name, but I hear that you write under more than one name. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so I also write thrillers under the name A.K. Alexander. And really the deal is I've been writing cozy mysteries under my name, Michele Scott. And then this is about the time that KDP came on the scene and you could self-publish without having a stigma of self-publishing, right? It crossed that line where you could do it and be cool. So I had all these backlist thrillers, right? Because when I was traditionally published, I always wanted to publish in the thriller category. And so I had several manuscripts that I'd written, but I'd kind of been put in this corner of a cozy mystery author, which is great, but I really wanted to write thrillers too. So I decided on the pen name because it's a totally different demographic. And the pen name actually stands for my children. They're all adults now, but Anthony, Caitlin, and Alexander. And my oldest one, Alex, said one day, he's like, "Oh, that's pretty cute, Mom. That's like AKA." And I was like, "Oh, I never even thought of that. You're right." So that's really why. It's really two different readerships. I mean, I think I probably get some crossover, but not a lot from the standpoint. My cozies they're cozy and they're romantic and there's a comedy in them. And my thrillers are serial killer stuff and very dark. And my dad used to say to me, like, "Where does this stuff come from in you?" I don't know, Dad. It just does. So that's why. Yeah.
Did you find it hard to build a whole new audience, though, having a different pen name?
Well, yes and no, right? So I was doing it as an indie author on the thrillers. I had written cozies for Berkeley Prime Crime, which is now Penguin Random House, I think. And so I was writing for Berkeley, and they dropped my mystery series. It was 2009 when the recession hit then. And so the thrillers, I put them up on KDP and nothing happened, right? Like I would see like onesie, twosie kinds of sales on a regular basis. And so I wasn't really thinking anything was going to click. And it wasn't anything that I did, really. I can't tell you other than one day I'm looking at my sales in real time because you can do it, right? And I'm seeing in the UK, like I'm selling hundreds and then thousands of books. Like I had priced my thriller Daddy's Home at 99 cents and I sold like, I don't know, 100,000 books. I mean, in a month, the book went to number one. This is 2000. Yeah.
You don't know what caused it?
I think a blogger. I actually think there was a blogger in the UK that picked up on it. It was nobody that I contacted or anything. And then it just rolled out from there. And it went to number one, 2011 UK. And then same thing happened in 2012. It went to number 4 here in the US in like 6 months later. And it couldn't break the Hunger Games. And, what was interesting about that time, of course, right? I mean, but at least I guess number 4. But at that time, what was really interesting is that you weren't considered a New York Times bestselling author. Indie authors, they wouldn't give you that title. Now they will, right? When you do sell a certain amount or you reach it, but then you couldn't. But I was like, man, I'm selling a lot of books here. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. But there was I really don't always know what works in marketing, and it changes all the time in this industry. Like it's always changing. I'm still trying to get on this TikTok bandwagon. I'm in my 50s now, and this is not really my thing, but I'm working it. I'm trying.
What do you mainly use as far as social media?
So, really like Instagram. Now I'm doing TikTok, and I have of course, somebody who's only 22, she's amazing and she's giving me direction and like how to do it. And so that's been really helpful. But probably Instagram, and really I think what I have is now that I have a readership is newsletters. that kind of thing. It's really important to have a great list. But it's ever changing. It's really hard because I think for the most part, writers we just want to write books. And so then when you tell us, oh, now you got to go do all this marketing and you just never know what's going to work, it's not easy, because I think most of us just want to spend our time writing. But then if people don't know about your book, and it could be the greatest book in the world, you have to do all these other pieces. You have to run it like a business, really.
Right. Absolutely. So aside from you said you have the newsletter and you're doing some social under guidance. Is there something that you would say is like, this feels like it really moves the needle, or is it just a combination of all the things?
I think it is a combination of all the things, and it's coming up with things all the time. I fortunately in some of my cozies, like in my wine lovers mysteries, I have wine pairings and recipes. Now, when I started that series back in 2004, that was a cool thing, right? Like people were doing it and it was a thing. Well, then I think there was a lull in it. And what's been interesting is now I'm getting a whole new readership of people in their 20s and 30s that really didn't know all about that, right? And they think that's pretty neat, because now I've got people like, oh, I tried this recipe, and and I'm getting emails like, what wine would you do with this? And so that's kind of fun. So I can angle it a little differently, right? And I think too that writers should think about, when they're writing, particularly a series, and they're writing about something they're passionate about. Like, I love food and I love wine. And I have a horse. I love horses. I have horses, so I do a horse series and things like this. It's like, if you're really passionate about something and you're writing about it, just kind of jump on that and really focus on a readership that might also have that same passion. And I think that's really helpful.
I think that's one of the really fun things about cozies is you have all these niches that you can write about and just really delve into them, because then other people learn to love them too.
You're right, but then on the flip side, when you're writing thrillers, that's such a vast audience, right? There's a larger readership there, and it's harder to sell. But those are the books that sell the most for me. Like serial killers, man, people still love that stuff. I don't know, it's a crazy world, but yeah.
Do you ever freak yourself out writing thrillers?
Yeah. Yeah. Not so much the writing aspect of it, but the research of it, and really wow, there's some really crazy stuff out there. And it's partly why I write both thrillers and then cozies. Although there's murder in both, the cozies are so much lighter, right? So I'm not doing the research on how would blood spatter when somebody's eviscerated, right? Like that kind of thing. The reason, because fortunately or unfortunately, fortunately as a writer, I have good contacts, like a homicide detective that I work with, that I can call and ask questions and things like that. But yeah, you do get a little freaked out. You can. So
having good contacts is really awesome. I've met some people on the way, and there's some great firefighters and police out there that are always more than happy to assist writers with their questions, if done politely, of course.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think that all you have to do is be willing to ask. I mean, my whole thing became, well, what's the worst thing they can do is say, no, I can't, I'm too busy or whatever. But for the most part, I have found that you're right. People who, whether it's doctors or policemen or women, detectives, anybody. I mean, even I did one set in the horse racing world, and even though I grew up with horses, racing is a whole different, space for me. And I went back to Lexington, and I met with trainers and people in the know back there, and they were really happy to talk about what they do and how they do it. And so I think you ask the right questions and you approach them in the right way. People really want to help you.
Let me kind of circle back to something that we started with, because you talked about originally you had your cozies, and those were traditionally published, and then you sort of branched out with these thrillers that were indie published. Where are you now? What's your percentage of traditional to indie publishing?
You know what? I do all indie now. And
nice.
Yeah. I'll tell you why. And not that I had a good go pretty much as a traditionally published author. I mean, I was a mid-list author, so, I did okay, but the royalty, the percentages, as you know, they're not great. You don't really have any control over your timeline. You don't really have a lot of control over most of it. So I like the fact that I get to set my calendar. I get to work with who I want to work with. Yeah, I have to put out some money up, to do these things. But to me, I almost feel like I put out a better product. I don't feel the pressure. I'll put my own pressure on. And I just think there's so many great books being written by indie authors. I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that for sure. Yeah.
Well, welcome to the indie universe. We hang out here.
I would say more of my books now. And in fact, I did get back all of my rights.
Yay!
I got back all my rights and I republished those books. And I have like really exciting news on the horizon with the wine mysteries. They've been optioned and we've got, I can't say who because contracts haven't been signed, but I'll come back on and tell you who. It's very exciting. I have an A-list actress, screenwriter, director. I mean, this thing is, my fingers crossed, Hollywood can be Holly weird, which,
right.
Anything can change. And this has been something that has been an ongoing thing for a long time. And a vision I've had.
Are we saying like TV series, movie? Where are we going?
This one they optioned for movie, and it's the wine mysteries. But the horse ones that I did, the cozies I did, I also got those rights back, and they've been optioned, and they want to do TV with those. We don't have any attachments with that yet. So yeah, and what's cool is that it's made me look at writing in a different way, and I'm writing my first screenplay right now. So I just wanted to I wanted to try it, and I actually really like it. I got final draft, and I think that this might be my next new thing that I do. I don't know.
That is exciting.
Yeah.
Now, did you have an agent to help you get those things optioned, or did you do that all by yourself?
You know what? That was me. And it wasn't just me. It was this is how life works. I feel like it's the universe so back in 2010, 2009, something like that, I went to a writer's conference with a couple of friends. And they weren't writers, but they wanted to go, and they thought they had an idea and whatever. And so they took my books, and I didn't know this, and they gave it to a friend of theirs who's a producer. And this guy,
nice friends. Here you go.
Right? And this guy, then it wasn't his pick, so he gives it to another producer. And that guy, his name's Vincent Newman. I can say who that is. And Vincent optioned them back then. Well, then we did move forward, and we had an actress who was interested, and then that fell through, and then another production company came in and they wanted to option again, and nothing happened with that. So then it just kind of dropped. This is again years ago, and so I'm just really open, right? So I'll just tell you the story. So with the way the universe works, I go and I went through a kind of a not a fun divorce. Not that any divorce is fun, but really, my ex was really wanting half of my rights, and that was in California. You can do that. So I was really trying to, I said, look, I'll give you this and that for just let me keep my rights, right? And I wasn't really selling a lot of books, honestly, then, because I was dealing with my father was very sick and a lot of stuff was going on, and I was helping with my family business. So nothing happened with it. Well, I go through this divorce, and then Vincent reaches back out to me 2.5 years ago, and I get this email from him. He says, hey, I was going through my old stuff, and I was wondering if you still own the TV rights to this and the movie rights to these books and what's going on with them. Can we talk? And so I was like, yeah. And right. So we talk, and he's like, well, I'd like to take the option again. And you know what? And here we are, and this has been almost 3 years in the works now. So it just, and they're all my rights, right? I don't have to share.
How exciting to see that come to life, though. We definitely, if that ends up coming in, fingers crossed, everything works out well, we'll have to get you back to hear how the process goes and how you felt about it all.
Yeah, I would love to. I'd love to. So that's one thing. Like when I talk to other writers, like if they really, I always see my series very visually as I write. So I always saw them on screen, and they just kept like putting it out there. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I just kind of, I'll pretty much talk to anybody. At a conference, I would go up and just pitch it. And I would, back in the day, I'm not kidding you, I would send letters to people like, I never know if they got there. They probably didn't. Like, Reese Witherspoon. Oh, you'd be great in my book. Just as probably get these. Their agents probably get these letters and like, who is this crazy lady? Right?
That's great though that you're your own cheerleader. Like, I can do this. Obviously, someone will take me.
Yeah. No, you just kind of have to be sometimes. So, yeah, it's been fun.
Well, I think it's interesting that the way you tell this story makes it sound like a whole lot of luck. But if you dig a little, I think the real answer is not that you're lucky, but that you have put yourself in front of the right people just over and over and over and over until somebody said yes.
With the right attitude. Like, I'm going to do this.
I think I would agree with that. And then also on the other side of it with writers, like I knew from the time I was a kid I wanted to be a writer. There isn't anything else that I wanted to do with my life but write. And so even if nothing had really happened and I wasn't selling books or I didn't have these things going on, I would still be writing. I would still be writing stories, books, it's in me. So if I was selling clothes at Nordstrom, I'd still be writing books at home at night. Right. So it's just what I do. And and it is a little bit of luck, but it is also really being willing to go out there and talk to people. And like you got one life here that at least we know of, so you might as well make the most of it and go for it, is the way I feel.
Yeah.
Well, not only luck, but you're a proven writer. I mean, you've got all these books out there. You're consistent. You're putting the work in, so they know they're going to get quality. So it's not like it was your first book. And you're like, here, publish me and do my movie.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly.
How many books do you have now?
I think there's like 37 or 38. I'd have to go back and look. But there's
guys, she's lost count.
I don't know. More than 20.
Yeah, there's more than 20 for sure. And I mean, I had, before I was ever published with an agent, because like I said, back then in the 2000s, early 2000s and in the 90s, because I wrote my first manuscript when my first son was born in 91. You could self-publish, but it was very expensive. You could be an indie author, but it's very expensive. And the likelihood of ever getting your book into a bookstore, it just didn't happen. Right. So it just wasn't a thing. So you had to go the route of getting an agent. And I wrote probably 8 full manuscripts and maybe as many partials, if not more, before an agent did pick me up in 2004. So I'd been writing all those years and just sending out queries consistently. I called Mondays Marketing Monday, and I used Jeff Herman's guide. I know they still have it. It's Jeff Herman's guide, I think, to literary agents, editors, and publishers, or something like that. And I would go through that guide religiously and look at who's asking for what, and do they want a synopsis? Do they want a full, like all of these things? And I would just, and then I would dread seeing the mailman after a while, because I'd be like, if I get another freaking rejection letter, I have some rejection letters that I had to tell you. One guy, can I swear on here? I don't know if I can.
Oh yeah, knock yourself out.
Okay, so one agent writes, "What is this shit?" I'm like, and that's actually the manuscript that's now been, that series is the one that's been optioned. So I'm like, I got the.
You're like, ha!
Do you want to like take the movie poster and just like
mail it to them,
send it to him?
Yeah, if I could remember who it is, like it was just, I think I had probably, I bet you I have over 200 rejection letters. I mean, I didn't move them with me. That's for sure. I would just start throwing them away. But it was really cool because my well, he's now 20, he's 28 years old now, but my son at the time, my middle one, he was 10, and I had been doing cold submissions. And I actually had gotten this book, this thriller, Daddy's Home, pretty far through the cold submission process at HarperCollins. And then I thought, wow, this is it, because I'd gotten a few letters and a phone call, and I thought this is going to happen. And then I get a final letter saying, I'm sorry, ultimately we decided this isn't for us, kind of thing. And I'm in the kitchen, whether you believe in God, whatever you believe in, it doesn't matter. But because out of the mouth of babes, he comes in and I'm crying, and he goes, Mommy, what's the matter? And I'm like, you know what, honey, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Maybe I'm not meant to be a writer. Maybe I need to be doing something else. And this kid, his name's Anthony, and Anthony goes, Mommy, don't you know that God wouldn't make you a writer if he didn't believe you couldn't do it? And I'm like, how do you give up after that? Like, there's no, you keep writing. And I'm not kidding you, it was about 4 to 6 months after that, I had an agent. And when I got the agent, it was within a couple of weeks that we got a deal with the mystery.
Wow.
And that was the title of that was Murder Uncorked. And she came back to me. My agent at the time came back to me and said, well, I think we have a deal on the table. They want to know what the next 2 books in the series are about. I was like, oh crap, I didn't know we were doing a series. I was like, well, when do they want to know? And she said, well, they would like to know by the end of the day. And I said, well, what do you mean? Yeah, I can't make this up. So she said to me, they want to know by the end of the day. I said, what do they need? And she said, well, they need a synopsis on the next 2 books in the series. I'm like, sure, no problem. So I wrote them up, and it worked. But it worked because I had a great mentor. His name was Mike Sirota. Mike is still alive, but he doesn't edit anymore. And he'd done all my freelance editing for me at the time. And I called him Yoda. And Yoda used to say to me, he called me kid, and he said, kid, you always say yes. When the publisher or editor says, can you do this? You just say yes. And then you figure it out after. I was like, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's what I did. Yeah. It was, yeah. And that was kind of the beginning of everything.
I love this story because there's like a little bit of advice or encouragement for everyone. If you're querying, 200 rejections could happen and you can still get picked up and instantly sell your book like a week later. If you want to be indie, you might not get traction immediately, and then some random blogger might decide you're the greatest thing ever, and suddenly you're a bestseller. So basically, don't give up and keep doing the thing. And you too could be Michele Scott, New York Times bestselling author.
Yeah.
Only with a different name.
Different name. Yeah. But I'll tell you, I have 5 P's that I go by when I'm talking about writing with people, or really anything in life. And if it's your passion, right? You got to be passionate about it. Otherwise, don't do this just because you think you're going to be an overnight success. It's few and far between, even, with the way publishing works now. You have to be passionate. And if you're passionate, then it's also your purpose, right? Like, when you're a writer, it's in you, and it's your purpose. And then I always say, be patient. I think it's 4 P's, maybe it's 5. I'm trying to remember. Be patient, because again, you don't know. You're sending out, if you are querying, you got to be patient to see what comes back. Or if you're doing the indie work and you're doing the promotion yourself, you got to have the patience. And then when you release a book, I always say you got to have peace of mind, because you can always go back and go, I could have done this better. I could have written this character differently, but you got to kind of let it go and have peace of mind. And and the 5th P is persistence, which kind of all ties in with everything else, right? You got to just be persistent. And like we talked about a little bit ago, how, I'll go up and approach pretty much anybody, and they probably think I'm an annoying person, but I'm persistent and it works. Like, I will, nobody is unreachable, I've learned. So write letters, make phone calls, be the squeaky wheel, which actually I have a story that you will appreciate off of that, is that When I was indie publishing, when I first started with the thrillers, I wanted to reach out to Jeff Bezos. So I just started randomly guessing what his email could be. Like, yeah. So I sent all these different, and it was really basic back then. And I got a hold of at least his assistant, and she wrote me back. And then what happened from that, what the catalyst of that was, as Daddy's Home, because it was doing really well, obviously, then, Amazon started their own subsidiaries, right? So Thomas and Mercer is their thriller mystery, and they came back in and they offered and wanted to buy the rights to that book, and then another one. And then their young adult division came to me and wanted 3 books from me. So, and what was really cool is that was when Kindle Fire first came out, and Amazon invited 15 of us indie authors to the big deal with, it was very cloak and dagger too. Like, they didn't tell you what you were coming for. They just said, can you come to Santa Monica, on these dates? And, and then they take us in this bus and then Jeff, they come out with the Kindle Fire and it was pretty cool. But that, my point is persistence. And you just never know. Like, if you want to reach somebody, if you want to do something, and you believe in yourself and what you've written, go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
Go for it. I'm a big, I tell my kids that all the time. Whatever your dream is, I support you. You just got to go for it.
So if people want to follow your amazing adventures, because the longer we talk, the more interesting this all becomes, where can they find you on the social medias?
So social media, let's see. My Instagram is just Michele Scott Author. My website is, there's 2. There's michellescott.com. It's Michele 1L. I should tell you that. And then my AK Alexander site is akalexander.net. So akalexander.net, michellescott1l.com, and all my social media is on there. But Instagram's Michele Scott Author. I don't remember the TikTok because I just started doing that, like I said. And but it's kind of fun.
I'll hunt you down.
Yeah, we're doing recipes on there. We're doing some cool things. It's kind of fun. It's growing. It's different.
Well, everybody, go follow Michele everywhere so that you hear the announcement when she finally is able to spill details about these deals. And
Yes.
In the meantime, we'll be trying to get her back on the show to also share that info.
Yeah, and if you go to my website, either one of those, you'll be able to download. If you sign up for my newsletter, you can download Murder Uncorked on my Michele Scott site for free, and you can get Daddy's Home free on my AK Alexander website. And then I will be announcing in newsletters like what's coming and all of that fun stuff. So please go follow me. That would be great. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being on the show. We really appreciate it.